Welcome back to Nikki's Scrapbooking Adventures. Today's Calling Creators with Melanie from A Creatively Crafted Life. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Nikki. I am excited about this topic today.
Yes, me too. So we are talking about scrapbooking essentials. Now, Jennifer McGuire does a fantastic thing on her channel where she goes through and talks about her 24 favorites, right? Or her 2023 favorites. Well, we're going to go back to the basics and kind of talk about things that are essential in our scrapbook room.
It's interesting how when I started to think about this, where if I applied a critical mind, how much of it really is essential and how much of it is nice to have.
This is true. This is true. Now everybody's like, I need a trimmer, I need paper, I need glue. Well, that's 3 things, but I don't know about you, Melanie. I've got 4 different trimmers and I've got a ton of paper and I've got 4 different glue.
And you're absolutely correct. And so there's a few things I think that revolve around this. It's the search for the elusive perfect tool that fits that category, right? What is the perfect trimmer? What is the perfect adhesive? And cardstock, well, I mean, it's just fun. So of course you have to have all sorts of different kinds, right?
Yes. A lot of people tell me their favorite part of this hobby is the paper just because it's so pretty.
Pretty and relatively inexpensive, right? You can get a piece of cardstock for $1.10 as opposed to some other items that are significantly more costly than that.
So let's just kind of get out of the way. What's your favorite trimmer and what's your favorite adhesive?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So I haven't found the perfect trimmer, and I have currently 1, 2, 3, 4. I do have 4 as well. I have the Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer from Tonic Studios, you know, the original. I have the Creative Memories kind of sliding trimmer with the rotary blade. I have a 12 by 12 swing line trimmer, a big one. And
isn't that the same thing as the guillotine that Tim Holtz has?
Yes, but there's a reason why I bought the 12 by 12. So I seem to have a problem where the arm has an extension. You know how like to make it 12 by 12, you've got that little piece that kind of expands out. I can't ever seem to get that to align properly, or it jiggles and gets out of space. And then I'm a sloppy trimmer. So if it's not perfectly aligned, I end up cutting things crooked, and it was driving me crazy. So I thought, well, let me get one that has a 12 by 12 bed where that doesn't move and see if that helps. And it has. Only what I don't like about this one is that it has this bar here to protect your fingers, basically, but there's nothing to hold down the paper. So you have to do it with your hands. And yes, you can do it, but it's not quite the same as the little grippy tool that's on the Tim Holtz one. So if I could combine the two, I think it would be perfect.
Maybe we need to talk to Tim Holtz and see if he can do that for us.
Well, he likes to come out with a new one every other year, it seems like, anyways, because I think he has a rotary cutter one that's his latest. And then the other one, which I'm probably going to have to give the award to as being my favorite trimmer because I've had it the longest, is my good old little Fiskars trimmer. This is the original. This is the OG. When I started scrapbooking back in 1992, this is the trimmer that I bought, and I still use it all the time for smaller cuts. It's precise. It doesn't get dull. The only negative is it only goes to 4 inches.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of people really like the Fiskars trimmer that has like the little wire guide, and it's a little thing. I find that you have to replace those blades too often. And so I don't like those kind personally. So I like the rotary, and Fiskars has a rotary, but it's not perfect. Like you said, those arms aren't aligned, and I have to lift my paper over the arm because that arm is not straight. So I have not found the perfect trimmer because I can never get a straight cut on anything that I use. But I like the rotary blade because I don't have to change it.
So does the Fiskar one, is it like the Creative Memories one where it has a channel in here with like that you have to replace periodically? I hate that too. Otherwise, this one's pretty good. I like the rotary. I like this works for the most part. This seems to be okay. It's not loose, but it seems to be okay. But I hate the fact that I have to replace this channel. I don't know, whatever it is, this cutting mat Like, why? Why?
Yeah. So
I get
mine, they offset the channel so that you can use 4 sides of it.
yeah,
You
the
can
same with this.
rotate it, flip it over, rotate it, so you've got
It's
4 chances. And I don't have to change the blade a whole bunch. The blades are relatively cheap. And I mean, I like it better than the traditional trimmer that Fisker comes out with.
right. So it's probably almost, I wouldn't be surprised if they were manufactured by the same company, because it's exactly the same thing for Creative Memories. You have four ways to rotate the little cutting mat in it. It just bothers me to have to replace stuff. Now, I did have the Caterpillar Pro rotary cutter, which didn't have the channels, and I liked that one for the most part. Only the arm kept getting loose. So again, I had that arm issue really bad with that one. And one of the selling features of the Caterpillar Pro was this idea that you could have a light that shined up through so you could see exactly where you were going to cut. But the lid that held the batteries in place kept falling out, which means the batteries kept falling out. So yeah. Anyways,
oh my goodness,
I gave up on that. So yeah, so the search for the elusive paper trimmer is still there. I think the craft world has cornered the market on, not making the perfect trimmer, so that we all have to keep buying some additional ones to try, because it really is an essential tool. Like, I can't imagine scrapbooking or making cards without a trimmer.
No way. I can, just using like scissors, I can never cut a straight line. And at least this is straight. It may be crooked, but it's straight.
And I mean, you can of course use like a regular hobby blade or like an X-Acto knife, or you could even use like a quilting rotary cutter and a blade, but it's not quite as convenient.
Yeah, my mom has chopped off the tip of her finger with one of those, so I'm not gonna do that on my paper.
Yeah, for sure not. Yeah, there's a few less safety precautions built into that methodology, isn't there?
Yes. Okay, glue, adhesive. What do you like? What do you don't like? What's your essential?
Sure. So when I first started scrapbooking, I hated liquid adhesive. Hated it. So there was no way I was ever going to use it. I always use some sort of tape runner. I still do use a tape runner. I am a fan of the ATG tape. I am not a fan of the dispenser.
Really? That's my favorite. I cannot craft without it, because those little tape dispensers that are like this big run out within one layer. And I'm like, no, I need a big thing to hold all my tape.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going for it. One is it's super sticky, right? So I'm not worried about stuff not sticking, but yet it's still usually pretty easy to peel up if you need to. The volume or the amount of tape you get on a roll is really good. And the price is really good, especially because I buy it like by the case.
Right. I do too.
But yeah, I have the original ATG runner. You probably have the Scotch one?
Yeah, I've got the Scotch version.
Yeah, I might have to try the Scotch one to see if that works a little bit better. I just find with the one that I have, it doesn't seem to hold the, what do you call it? The excess, like the tape that comes off, the release tape. It doesn't seem to hold that very well. And I've tried multiple times. I've watched multiple videos. It's probably me, let's be real. But for whatever reason, I can't seem to grasp it. So for the last couple of years, it's a bit messy, but it's been working. I just use the tape by itself. And I literally I literally just roll it with my hands.
Oh my gosh.
I think I have a roll here somewhere. I'm almost finished it. Oh, here it is. See? It's almost done.
What do you keep it in? To not make it sticky? Like, it would collect all the hair. All the dog hair would be on that.
Well, I don't have any dogs, so for one. But normally I'll have the release tape and I just wind it around so that it's covered and it's fine. I know. A little bit shocking. I'm a rebel.
And you buy that by the case. So you've been doing this for a very long time.
Well, it's only probably about 2 or 3 years where I gave up on the ATG dispenser. I might try it again here. We'll see if I feel a little better about it. But yeah, it was causing me frustrations that just were not supposed to happen in the craft room.
That's true. Like, we're talking about all these essentials. The point of the essential is to make your life easier. And if it's not working for you, I get
Yeah.
it. Just switch it. But I hate sticky. So I can't even imagine having that loose. Like that's,
Yeah.
some people don't like styrofoam or nails on a chalkboard. It's sticky for me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I love my dispenser because the sticky is not there, you know?
Fair enough. And it is messy in the sense of like the release tape, of course, builds up, right? And so I just tear it off periodically and just chuck it in the bin, and it's working. So I don't know. We'll see. So what is your favorite non-liquid adhesive?
Non-liquid adhesive is the ATG too. I just love it. Love it, love it. I don't use repositional, and if I think I have one small dispenser of repositional. I just don't use it. RTS Scrapbooking likes to use it on our die cuts to put in binders. I just use my ATG, and I don't give a crap if it rips. Like
Me too. Me too. But I also do on my binders, I put them on page protectors, so it really doesn't rip at all. It just literally peels right off. And it's super tacky enough to stick to the plastic of a page protector. So it works pretty good. The other non-liquid adhesive that I like is the white, I'm going to call it score tape, but I actually buy the non-branded stuff. You know what I'm talking about? The double-sided score tape. Oh, I'm looking all over for it. It's right here. Well, I say that I buy the non-branded. This one actually is branded.
Like you can get it at Dollar Tree. Same with like foam adhesive. I get my foam adhesive from Dollar Tree too.
I just buy it on Amazon in bulk normally. And same with the foam tape. I buy a non-branded version of that, which is another essential, by the way, foam tape.
Yes.
Can't do without it.
I think I could do without of it. I'm okay with my layouts being flat, but if I want that dimension, it is necessary. I mean, it's not necessary because you can layer die cut too. So I don't consider that a necessity.
The reason why I do consider it a necessity is because I do a lot of card making, and there's no way I'm cutting out extra panels to layer up all the card stuff. That's too fussy. So a piece of foam tape is much quicker for me to use than to layer it. So, yep, I'm going to beg to differ on this one. Foam tape is essential. Leave a comment below which team you're in. Foam tape, yes or no? Team Nikki or Team Melanie? I'm interested to see.
I mean, I am saying foam tape is nice. You know, it's just not, I could live without it if I had to, you know?
Yep. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, what about liquid adhesive? Do you use liquid adhesive, and what do you use?
I do, and I use art glitter glue. Now, when I first started scrapbooking, I used Elmer's glue, and I think that's where we fell out of love with wet glue because Elmer's tends to buckle and it does not look good. But with the amount that you apply with art glitter glue and their little fine tip nozzle, it doesn't buckle and it's fine.
Yeah, I think the moisture content is different in them too. I think Elmer's glue is very wet. Like it is a very wet glue. And you can tell also in the dry time, right? Art glitter glue, Barely Art, Scotch Quick Dry. I don't know what it's called now. They call it something else, I think. But they all dry very quickly, which tells you there's not a lot of moisture content. And we all know that water and paper they're not best friends for the most part.
Right, right. Now I will say, I used to also use the Elmer's glue stick. I wish I hadn't because that just doesn't stick well.
Yeah. Longevity wise, right?
Yeah. So I probably have to go and fix some of my old scrapbooks from 2012 and 2013 because of I also used to do the little loop thing with just normal single-sided tape and put my pictures on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then I found tape runners, and that was a different story, right? But those are the small ones, and I got frustrated because there's just not very much. And then when I started scrapbooking again in 2020-ish, that's when the ATG was available. And so I hopped on that train super quick.
Yeah, a lot of adhesives, they don't have the shelf life that we would hope. Even some of the stuff that was marketed as archival, I've had issues with, where over time it has released. I know Janet over at RTS, she's super diligent about doubling up on her adhesive. So she'll use something like an ATG to adhere it initially, and then she'll go back and tack down corners and stuff with some liquid glue. I'm not quite there. I'm living a little dangerously. I figure, we'll let the page live its life and see where it ends up. But I do know I have some older albums that need a little bit of repairs and maintenance on them.
So art glitter glue, The other adhesive that is kind of an essential because I like to add bulk, like buttons and ribbon and that kind of thing, is 3-in-1. This is upside down because I got very little left. Yeah, fabric tack is what Melanie uses. We kind of talked about that in a different video.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think it's the same thing. It's a silicone-based glue, but mine's
yeah,
upside down too.
let me tell you, this is like the messiest, stickiest stuff though. But thank goodness it comes off your fingers.
Exactly. It just kind of peels off once it's dried. I would say that one's up there. I do also use, speaking of which, I don't see it in my desk right now.
Is it super glue gel?
Yeah, it's like a super glue, so that, like it's stuff you usually use for repairing things. I will use that for adhering like heavier items on my scrapbook layouts, like metal and stuff like that. Although recently I've been using the Fabri-Tac and that's been doing a pretty good job as well. So mix and match. I think the Fabri-Tac's actually easier to work with than the super glue.
A lot of crafters like to use E6000, and I bought a tube, but it scares me. It flows out in big clumps when
Yeah.
the 3-in-1 has a little bit of a narrower nozzle, which I like. So I still have it. I'm still experimenting with it. It says it's archival safe and everything, but it reminds me of Neosporin, how it comes out because it's that kind of tube. And I can't. I don't know.
I wonder, because I have some of it, of course. One of the things I don't like about it is the fumes that it puts off. So I don't actually use this for scrapbooking per se, but I have used those mesh bags to store some of my 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I added labels and they weren't quite sticking. So I was using this to really get it to bond, and that seems to have worked. But I wonder if you could decant this into a smaller bottle with a fine tip, or if it would just clog up your fine tip.
It's pretty thick. I think it wouldn't be able to do like, an art glitter glue fine tip. It could do something probably thinner.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if it would dry in the tip and then basically make it useless.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like once it's dry, it's dry. I even had a container of this where I had a little bit of adhesive. Actually, it might even be this one. I haven't given up on it yet, but I didn't clean off the lip. And so when I screwed the lid on, it's permanently like, I can't unscrew it. I've tried everything on it. So, but it's still squishy. So I know it's still good glue. It's just, what do I decant it into? I don't know. Maybe if someone has some suggestions, that would be helpful.
Yeah. If you're an E6000 user and you've moved on to a different container, let us know.
I think those are probably my biggest things for adhesive. We mentioned art glitter glue. I use Barely Art. The two of them to me are very interchangeable. I don't notice a ton of difference. I know one is more stable for transportation in the winter and the other one won't ship. So if you are in a more northern climate, that may sway your vote one way or the other, which one to go with. But for the most part, I find them quite interchangeable, very happy with them. That's my essentials.
That's your essential. So that's the trimmer and adhesive. So now we're getting into the meat of the conversation. What are those items in your craft room that are not your paper trimmer, your glue, that are essential?
Yeah. So what's your number one thing, if I took it out of your craft room, that you would come and hunt me down for?
So this is showing my OCD a little bit, just a little bit. I have to have centered photo mats. And the only way I can get centered photo mats is with my layer guides, because I stick my photo onto the paper and then I use my layer guide to butt up against my photo and cut along the edge, and they're centered perfectly every time.
So
Love
is that
them.
a specific ruler, or is it just, it's designed to trim the mats?
It's designed to trim the mat. So it's called We Are Layer Guide. And like, I don't know if you can see, it has a thicker side and then a thinner side right here.
Okay.
Your
yeah.
photo goes up against this edge, and it's 3/4 of an inch from the edge to here, and it's labeled 3/4 of an inch.
Okay. So you have ones for different sizes of your mats that you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this big piece right here from the edge to that line is 1 inch.
Right.
So I use the 1/16, 1/8, and 1/4 the most. So
And so you
like,
use like a cutting mat and a like an X-Acto blade or whatever then.
Yep. A cutting mat and an X-Acto knife are necessary with this. But if you took these away from me, I would hunt you down.
Well, I'm not that precise, so I clearly don't have those. I do little tricks like there's a line right here on this guard, and that is the amount of space that so I'll line the edge of the photo here, and then the mat will just trim, and that gets it nice and even all the way around. But of course, I'm limited to one, or I just wing it.
Oh my gosh. No.
But that being said, one of my essentials is a ruler because I don't always wing it. So I don't know what the right word is. Sometimes I'm neurotic and sometimes I'm not. So sometimes it really matters that everything be lined up perfectly, and other times I just wing it. And then I go, why didn't you use a ruler? Because it's crooked. And I go, oh, well, and I move on. I love this ruler. This is a Fiskars. I think it's intended for quilting, but it is a Fiskars brand, and it's a 6x12. I will use this for spacing as well. So like if I want something centered, I can figure out where to center it with this. I do have this ruler. It's one of those T-square rulers. I would take this over this any day.
Really? That's surprising. Yeah. Can you square the sewing one?
So what I do is, because it's got lines in all the directions, is I will line this up with the edge of the paper and then this way, so I can actually do both lines at the same time. And I just find that that's better because this is even on the paper all the way across. This here, because of the T-square, there's a gap here, so that if I'm trying to align something, you know, not so much a 12-inch piece, that works fine, but a smaller piece, like if you're trying to line it up in this area, sometimes the paper will sneak underneath and defeats the whole point of this. Right. Like, what's the point? So I have seen, I think it might be Simon Says Stamp has one where they bumped this out and it's all flat. So I might try that, although really I have this and I'm quite comfortable using this, so I really don't need to buy anything else. But yeah, this was a disappointment. Good thing it was only like $2.99, so it wasn't a massive disappointment.
Well, now you're thinking maybe I should pull mine out, because I've got one of those rulers as well for my sewing that I occasionally do. And try that instead of my T-square, because again, it is annoying. That's why it's not an essential. Because I would rather just eyeball lining it up than using my T-square sometimes. And
I've seen We Are Memory Keepers, which has a ton of gimmicks. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, but they have like a laser. And I'm like, I don't know that I trust it.
Really? See, yeah. I would trust it. My problem with it would be, what if you get too many layers? Then the laser's blocked.
Okay. See, and I guess that's what I mean. Like, that's probably more what I was getting at. Like, what are the pitfalls of it? Like, when doesn't it work? What do people not like about it? I guess that's really what I would need to investigate before I committed. I'm trying to be a little better about that kind of stuff instead of just getting caught up in the moment. Oh, this is a cool tool, and then have it just sit and not use, right? So, but really I have this and I love it. So I need to let it go.
Yeah. So one thing, this is like not really scrapbooking, but I've got a little cube that is square, and it's got a couple levels on it, but it's intended for construction. And you can pin it on the wall to tell when your stuff is level. It's a laser. So, I mean, you could try, it's like $5 or something off Amazon. You could try something like that and see if you like it, and then do what you're going to do. I need to replace the batteries in mine, but that's not something that I see people use on YouTube. Like, I don't see them use that We Are Laser Guide thing. They all use a T-square.
Well, then that must be saying something.
Right.
Right. That's what we'll go with. I don't need it. What are the tools we need to actually assemble them?
Yeah, so I found these because I'm a Happy Planner girl, and these are from Happy Planner, and I want to be able to have them in 12x12, and I can't figure out what they've done. But they took a piece of plastic, and one side has a matte film on it while the other side is super shiny. It looks shiny, but it's not shiny on this side. And instead of wax paper, I use this to put my stickers and embellishments on it, so I can move it around my page, take it off for filming, put it back on, that kind of thing. And this is called a sticker guide from Happy Planner. I can't live without this now. I travel with it. I use it in my planner. I use it on my scrapbook pages. The only downside is it's not 12 by 12. This is 8.5 by 11.
I have bought some plastic to make dividers. I'm going to test it out. I'm going to test it out to see if I can add stickers on there, and because it's basically that you can add stickers on them and they'll peel off easily, right? That's
Yes,
really
and
the key.
Yeah. And you know how thin those Simple Stories book stickers are? They
Yeah.
come off this super easy and they don't rip.
Okay, let me test it out, because if I do, I mean, if it does work, they come in like 11 by 4, still not quite 12 by 12. But at least we'd be on the right track. So let me try that out. I'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. It's just like I've gone to Lowe's and Home Depot to find a plastic like this. And it's so funny. It looks like the coating that they put over the plastic that you peel off.
Right.
But this doesn't peel off. And so I don't know what they've used on the one side of the plastic to make it not stick, and it's driving me nuts.
Well, maybe one of our viewers has done something or come up with something. Leave us a comment below if you know how to make a plastic sheet not sticky.
Yes, that would be amazing. Please.
Yeah. And I know I have some scraps here somewhere, so I will definitely give it a try, because now I'm curious. Because I could see that would be a great idea. You could almost lay it all out, figure out where you want it, and then just transfer it afterwards. I know, again, Janet from RTS uses wax paper to kind of move things around, but I think the plastic sheet one, it's more sturdy, so you can pick it up and move it easier. And how great that you could just lay it over top and see how it works. Yeah.
That, and with the wax paper, those Simple Story stickers that are super thin from those books tear.
Yeah, they're just too sticky.
Yep. Go Simple Stories for being super sticky, but man, they're hard to use sometimes.
Yep, exactly. So I don't have anything else in that I consider essential. I have some runner-ups. So I'm gonna just go cut through those quickly. Now, when I say they're runner-ups, meaning I don't use these on every page or every card. So I'm also including card making in this, but I do think that they are quite useful. One is actually Post-it notes. So if I'm working on a layout and I want to leave spots for journaling, I will use a Post-it note kind of as a placeholder. Or if I'm like out traveling and scrapbooking and I don't have something, I'll use Post-it notes to leave notes for myself on the layout. So Post-it notes for the win, for that kind of thing. Yeah, not essential, but I do really like that. And then Jennifer McGuire introduced us to the concept of using press and seal. I don't know if you've ever used that. More so for card making, but you could apply it to scrapbooking, where if you're doing like a lot of clusters and you want them all to stay together, you can actually lay them out, use the press and seal to hold all the layers together, flip it over, add your adhesive on the open spots, and then transfer it back to your layout using the extra press and seal, and then transfer. So that's actually quite a game changer if you do a lot of layering and embellishing.
Yeah, so I've used press and seal in the past. My die cuts seem to shift. And the other thing, like card makers, I mean, I guess I'm not a card maker, but in the past when I've seen it, it's been die cuts primarily. And I mix my die cuts with my stickers. And so that does not always work. And that's why I like my sticker guides, because I can, lay it all out with stickers and die cuts.
Yeah, makes sense. We didn't really talk about scissors. So not so much for scrapbooking, unless I'm fussy cutting out embellishments or stuff. These are my favorite scissors. They are by Fiskars. They're a little bit weird, but they're spring loaded, which means it's very easy on your hands when you're cutting. It automatically reverts back out. Absolutely love these. Do you have a favorite pair of scissors?
I'm in the search.
Yeah.
I'm in the search. I found a place called, so I've known about Scraps KC for a very long time. What people do is they donate their old scrapbooking or card making or whatever craft to this place, and they employ homeless, which is awesome. Well, somebody had donated all of their scissors. And so I got to try out like a whole bunch of different scissors for relatively cheap. And I still can't find my favorite scissor. My hands start hurting after I fussy cut. Maybe, it doesn't cut as smoothly as I would like. And instead it kind of rips the paper. So I am in the hunt for the perfect scissors still.
Yeah. So like I said, I do really like these Fiskars ones. I don't remember what they're called. like what the style of them is, but they look very funky. I also like, well, these ones were from Stampin' Up, but they're very similar to Cutter Bee scissors. I do like those as well. They are not spring loaded, but they do have a nice sharp tip on them for fussy cutting, which is really great. I don't have a great pair of big scissors. I just have like generic, but I don't use these very often. If I'm going to cut anything really large, I'll pull out my trimmer usually because you know, the straight cut is important, even if it's crooked.
So I will say I've had this pair of scissors since 2012. It's Westcott, and you can see they've been beat up. Like it's chew marks here, and they cut fantastically. I could fussy cut if I really wanted to, but the problem is that they're just big, and so fussy cutting doesn't quite work with them. But I've had these forever. They were originally my sewing scissors. They're not intended for sewing scissors, but I use them for paper, sewing, whatever. I don't have my sewing scissors like my mom does, you know. I don't really care.
That's only because you don't cut a lot of fabric.
Right.
Paper dull scissors very quickly. So
yeah. So I've had those forever, and I just can't get rid of them. I like them so much.
So yeah, any recommendations on a big pair of scissors? You know, is it essential for me? Probably not, but I'm always open to suggestions.
Yeah. And small detail scissors, please. And, you know, non-stick scissors. I feel like we need 3 scissors in our room, right? We need big scissors, non-stick scissors, and then fussy cutting scissors.
Yeah, I know Tim Holtz has a pair of non-stick, I think, but like small blades, but I've never used those of his. The only ones I have are this size.
And I don't like that handle.
It's too big?
The blade is too short. I don't know.
Okay, it just doesn't feel right.
Super, yeah.
I accidentally bought the left-handed version, and then I got home and I'm like, why does this feel so weird? And then I realized it was the left-handed version. So that one was going to my sister if I haven't already given it to her. So, and then one last honorable mention tool that I use in my layout assembly. I guess this probably might be considered more embellishments than layouts, but is a paper piercer. So I will sew periodically on my layouts, and I prefer to hand stitch instead of machine stitch because I'm not inclined to get out my sewing machine. So I will use a paper piercer for that. I also just like the texture of paper piercing. So that is another tool that has a permanent home on my desk.
So I feel like good lighting is really essential. It doesn't really matter what kind of lights, you know, for YouTube and those kinds of things, you need good lighting. But I'm just talking about like normal assembly. I got to be able to see my layout. And my desk is behind me, but when I'm standing at my desk, my light's behind me. So I have to have good lighting in front of me in order to see what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I call that part of the room setup category, and lighting is on mine as well. I actually have 2, I don't even know if this will come down, one of these on either side of my desk. They just clamp into the edge of my desk. And what I like about these is that I can have them up high so they give the broader look. But if I really want to have focus lighting, I can bring it down onto my work surface. They don't rotate 360. Sorry, Nikki, but that's probably what you would need, is something that rotated fully around so you could get it at both of your areas.
Well, so I've got under the cabinet lighting here, and that's my primary use.
Okay.
And then I've got for YouTube 2 hot lights, one right here, and then one behind my head, and then my little buoy, you know, for my camera.
Yeah.
And then I have another under the cabinet light to my left.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of light, but I still feel like for YouTube videos, it's too dark.
Well, YouTube's a whole other beast. Fortunately, most of our viewers don't have that issue, but thank goodness for video editing. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I bump it up there, but yeah, I mean, you really need to have a space designed, like, if you know what I mean, like actually, if you had the money to set up your craft room as a craft room, you could build in the appropriate lighting from all the different angles and all that kind of stuff. But like many of us, we're just using an extra bedroom or, you know, making do with a space. And so you just kind of have to try and make it work with what you got.
Yep, I agree. I guess this is probably along your category of room setup. I have to have a cutting mat.
Do you have it all the time?
Yep. So I've got my cutting mat all the time out. I recently switched to one of self-healing mats to use for sewing. I got it super cheap at Walmart, which was crazy. because, you know, you go to Joann, it's like 40, $50 for
Yeah.
one of the bigger
Yeah.
ones, you know, that would hold the 12 by 12 layout. This is like $15. I was like, ah, I'll do that.
Yeah, you definitely have to get outside the crafting industry to look for similar products. There's a lot out there, and there definitely is a craft tax, I find, for a lot of items.
Yes, I would prefer to use my glass mat because it can take cuts, it can take mixed media, but filming again, you know, I have to think about that. There's a huge glare.
Yeah.
So I had to switch to a self-healing mat because the glare was just driving me nuts.
Yeah, so I bought a different glass mat from someone, I don't remember who it is, but it's one of my regrets. Not so much that I don't love it, it's because of all the YouTube videos, I never use it. So it was kind of a waste of money in that regards. Maybe one day when I no longer do YouTube, it'll come out again and surface itself. Now I have my whole desktop is one cutting mat.
Oh, wow.
So I went on Amazon and purchased, what is it? It's 57 by 36, I think. It's not a self-healing one. It's almost like the cutting board plastic, you know. The only thing that I will say I am not loving about it is it doesn't like heat. So because it's on my desk when I heat emboss and stuff like that, it has kind of rippled a little bit along the edge, which is not great. So I might have to one of these days clear this desk off and rotate it and just see if I put, you know, either try heating it up to get it to flatten or even just rotating it the other way, you know, use the side that wasn't each side, because now it's starting to buckle. So when I'm trying to glue stuff on paper, I can feel that it's buckled underneath.
That's why I like my glass mat too. It takes heat. I can use my fuse tool on it and it doesn't budge. Like that's the recommended tool for fusing is a glass mat. So I wish I could figure out how to get my lighting not to reflect on it. I mean, people have done it, you know. I think like Sarah Scraps, Made it definitely has a glass mat, but it's just the lighting.
Yeah, you probably need more lighting surrounding to just kind of give you that overall light instead of the directional stuff, because it's the directional stuff that you see, you know, the hot spots. Craft mat is essential. I think that's essential in my world. That I don't have is more surface area. More surface area. I'm not sure how I can get it though. I'm pretty much at max capacity, so I thought that was kind of funny.
Yes. We need more surface area. I'm at max capacity too, unless I build shelves on my working, like above my working desk, and I don't want to do that. We don't need more shelves in this room.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not even talking so much about like shelves per se, but I like having countertop space because I would love to have different stations. Like I'd love to have my sewing machine out all the time. I just don't have the space to have it out all the time. I'd love to have my silhouette out all the time. I don't have the space for it. So those are, and I know myself that because they're not out, I'm not going to go and grab them unless I deliberately, you know, I'm challenged to do so. 90% of the time, well, let's be real, 99% of the time, I'm just not going to. I will find another way to make it work, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe someday I will have more counter space, but you know, not today. Yeah. So do you have anything else in your room that's an essential?
My last item that's an essential is my printer.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even think about putting that on my list.
Because I like to print my own photos if I get inspired by a recent event. Otherwise, I use free prints. But I don't even use it for the 12 by 12 function, even though I have a 12 by 12 printer. I use it. I probably could just get away with going back to 8.5 by 11 printing.
Right. Yeah, a printer definitely is a good one to have on your list.
But I mean, I use it for work. I use it for my son's school. I mean, I just use it all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I have it. It doesn't need to be 12 by 12, but it is what it is.
Have you ever printed 12 by 12?
I have, and I'm actually getting rid of those kits.
Oh, okay. So you printed more for supplies as opposed to a photo as a 12 by 12.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So I bought digital scrapbooking kits and paper and stuff. And at one point I wanted to be a hybrid scrapbooker. It's just not as good quality as if you were to get the actual paper, because when they design, they have to make it with a colored background. Well, that means it's not white, which drives
Right.
me nuts. And my printer doesn't do 12 by 12 to the edge. There's a 1/4 inch border.
Okay.
So I'm kind of over it. I can just do the 8.5 by 11 and be done.
Right. Right. I think you should try printing a 12 by 12 photo. They're a lot of fun. I've done that quite a bit. They are fun and they are very impactful in an album where all of a sudden you get this like big photo. I use it quite often for travel books to denote different days. Like, so if I'm on a trip, you know, day one, I'll take one picture from that day that's kind of like a highlight. And I will use that, print that as a 12 by 12. And I will still add a few little embellishments. Usually it's like a couple banners, or I'll put like a title on it, day one, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, especially if you have some good photos.
The reason I wouldn't do it is because I'm frustrated with my camera on my phone. It just doesn't take the quality of photos that I thought it would. And so I am switching over to the dark side and going for an iPhone soon.
There you go. Well, then, you know, you're going to have to try once you switch over, you know, try printing a 12 by 12 photo. It's fun. It's fun. Not that I do it all that often. Again, it's one of those things that's more an exception than the norm, but it is fun to flip through an album and all of a sudden see this really big photo. So one other thing I had in my space, this is going to sound really funny, but an extra large garbage bin is essential. When I get crafting, I am like, you know what I mean? So I am not one of those people that, you know, at the end of the day, I tidy up my desk, I empty the trash bin, put the recycling. That's not me. I'm like, I go, go, go. So I need a huge bin. And even then, it still ends up overflowing, which is ridiculous. But anyways, another essential.
Oh my goodness. Do you have a recycling and a trash? Because I just throw everything away. I'm the bad person in the group.
Yeah, so most of my stuff is recyclable because it's paper scraps. I assume it's all recyclable. So that's generally what I throw in there. Anything that's more garbage, I will toss that out. Like I'll take that out of the room with me, usually, because I don't want it in my room smelling it up or, you know, that kind of thing. But generally that's how it works. But yeah. Okay, so we talked about all these other things. I have one last category, which I'm calling embellishment. So this is more, what are the essential tools you have to like really make your page pop, or, you know, that you add as an additional item. So things like, for instance, I love the little tiny attacher. Do I use it on every single layout? No, but I consistently use it that I would miss it if it was gone. Does it have to be the tiny attacher? Could you just have a regular stapler? Yeah, I think you probably get mostly the same effect, but a stapler of some sort, I think, is quite a cool, cheap, inexpensive embellishment that you can add. So that's one of them. Do you have anything?
I think I have two, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so talking about attaching this guy, I feel like is a necessity. I don't use it a whole bunch on scrapbooking, but when I make like traveler's notebooks, I like to use this on there. And this is the We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile, where you can use eyelet.
Right.
And it sits in the drawer right on my desk. It's right there ready to go.
Right. So at about 10 years ago, if you had asked me what an essential tool was, I would have said that one, because back then I think we were still doing eyelets a lot. You know, and snaps and that kind of thing, which I still have. And I do have that tool. But prior to that, we used to have to pound the hole and use a hammer. And so that was a real game changer and definitely would have been considered an essential. I don't find I use eyelets and snaps and all that much anymore. I just don't think about it, to be honest. Like, it's not that I don't like them. I just don't think about it. And I think that's kind of goes with how the industry flows, right? It's not a big popular item right now in layouts, but you know, it's going to come back at some point.
Right.
Someone's going to rediscover them. Now, along that line, I do have this one, which is also a We Are Memory Keepers. This is a 1/4 inch. So it's a bigger hole punch. And you think a 1/4 inch is a very common size, like your regular single hole punch is, yeah, like if you go to like Office Depot and you buy a hole punch, So you don't need this one specifically. If you have one of those, that's great. But I use them all the time for punching holes and tags. A lot of the ones like Simple Stories, the hole is about this size. But I do like this one because it will punch through thicker materials. So if you ever use chipboard or anything like that and you want a hole punch through it, this is a fantastic tool to use. And that was on my list as another essential is a circle punch. Either this one or just even the fact that I have these out on my desk right now tells you that I do use them. Could you use dies? Absolutely, right? But this is way faster than pulling out a die, running it through the machine. You know, I could probably punch out, I don't know, 30 circles by the time it takes me to die cut too. So I think there still is a place for punches like that. I don't really buy a lot now, but ones that I would recommend if you were going to get some would be the smaller circles, you know, probably like 2-inch and below. If you start getting above, I don't even know if they make anything bigger than 2 inches. But if you start doing bigger than that, I probably would go with a die cut machine, like a die. And then labels or tabs. Those are other really great ones that are great to use, not only because they're fast, but they're also great to use on scraps. Whereas trying to use a die cut machine on a piece of scrap is kind of a pain, you know, especially when you're dealing with small spaces. So
along the lines of punches, I have this one, which is the regular old scallop on my desk, and I use it all the time. I use it all the time.
That is so funny because I pulled that out to show you as one of mine, but I don't know where I put it on here. Oh, here it is. Here it is. See?
We have the same one. We're matchy, even from Stampin' Up.
Yep. And this is my essential. I have scalloped border. Absolutely essential. Well, there you go. If it has both Nikki and my approval, then you know it's a stamp of approval.
So the banners. I was driving myself nuts with having like imperfect banners. So OCD Nikki came into play and she got herself a punch that's banners.
That just cuts the dovetail in the banners. Is that the idea?
Yep. Yeah. So it does 1.5, 2, and 2.5 wide banners.
There you go. I also put a corner rounder down. Yeah. Some people don't like rounded corners. So I've got this one from Creative Memories. I also have this one again, all right next to my desk from Crocodile. It's the corner chomper. It does a 1/2 inch and 1/4. Because again, if you do mini albums and you want to cut around the corners of an album, this one's really fantastic for it. But,
yeah, I think I've got one of those, you know, super cheapos that's got the 3 sizes.
Yeah.
I love it for paper, but anything thicker than paper, it does not cut through. And that chomper will cut through anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I might need to switch what I do.
It's fantastic. Well, clearly I've got both, right? One that does paper and one that, you know, it is what it is. Creative Memories cutting system. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Oh, the circles? Yeah.
Yeah. That one, again, I probably bought about 1994-ish, maybe a little bit later. I'm not sure when they came out with it. I'm sure it's the original OG, but yeah, I have not found a system I like better for cutting circles than that one.
Yeah, if it's like, you know, something in the middle of the layout that you really want the circle, that's your go-to. The other thing is if it's a big circle, like you got to get this one because I could probably use my silhouette or whatever, but I don't want to pull it out. I have this right next to my desk and I'm ready to go.
Exactly. And then the other thing I have are pens. So actually love the Sharpie, the permanent one, and I like the other one, which I don't know if I have on my desk right now, or if I do, it's buried. But just the not permanent one by Sharpie. They're my favorite. I don't know why, but they are my favorite.
Slick writers. So they write on photos and they're archival. And so if I say don't have my date stamp with me, I'll have one of those markers and I can write my date on my photo.
There you go. Any other pens that you use regularly?
I use the friction erasable in my planner and in my daily life. The thing you have to be careful about though is if your text gets hot, say you actually put it on top of, you know, a vent and it's winter, the text will disappear.
Right.
My dad, I guess, had used this erasable pen and he had all of his notes from flying and he put it in front like of the cockpit where there was a vent for the window and the heat was on. He lost all of his notes.
Ouch.
So just be careful
Yeah.
with these.
Pros and cons, right?
Yep.
And then the last tool that I just wanted to make mention is some sort of stamp platform. If you are a stamper, I have the Misty. There's a couple other ones that are out there. Anything that helps you get your stamps aligned, I think is a fantastic tool to have.
I agree. So if our viewers have any recommendations for their essential tools for scrapbooking or card making, please list them down below. On Wednesday on Melanie's channel, we're going to talk about journaling and have some prompts for you. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you on Wednesday.
See you next time.